What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Willis Twin Towers podcast. It's good to see you guys here. As always, quick reminder before we get started, as we always say, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, give us a follow on X or Twitter if you're not already. You can find me. I'm at _Jeff Willis. You can find Tim. He's at Tim Willis24, and you can find our executive producer, Aldo Gandia. He is at Barroom Network, and that's where you can find a lot of all of our content, as a matter of fact, on this channel. So we appreciate you guys, like I said, being here. And another quick reminder, we have an email that we've been using lately and as a way for you guys to get us some questions or things you want us to talk about, discuss, things of that nature. We've been talking a little bit about music at the end of every show lately in the off season. So I know you guys like to do that. So any kind of stuff like that, any suggestions, things like that you want to get into, the email account for the email address for the account is willistwintowerspodcast@gmail.com. And you can also send us a direct message on X. Also, that's a good way to reach us as well. So like I said, it's willistwintowerspodcast@gmail.com. So let's kind of dig into stuff a little bit here. We got a few things we want to talk about. Before we get into the Bears stuff, I do want to mention, most of you guys know that Tim and I are big Notre Dame fans. And if you guys are big college football fans in general, I think it's interesting to note that Notre Dame has been on an absolute recruiting heater the last week or so, and really over the last month or so in general. But they have just, in the last several days, they've picked up three big-time recruitments. One was an offensive tackle, guy named Grayson McKeoch. I think I'm pronouncing his last name right. He's huge. I want to see he's like 6'8", 330 or something. He's an enormous kid. And he was a big-time get, 4-star talent, one of the better tackles in the class. Then they got another commit from a kid named Kari Adams, one of the best corners in the class. He's the number 3 corner, according to, I think it was 24/7 was the 24/7 Sports was the ranking that gave him that, and the 30th overall player in their class. That was a big commitment. And then they just got another huge commitment from a kid in Pennsylvania. And both these kids, Kari Adams and this Joey O'Brien kid, they just got a commitment from, they were big Penn State recruits. Penn State was going after him hard. And like I said, O'Brien himself is from Pennsylvania. So they missing out on him was big for them. And him coming to Notre Dame, he's my guess is he will be the top recruit in their class, according to most of the services. He's the top safety, according to most of the recruiting services. And he's obviously a blue chip player. He's a 5-star player, according to most of them. So he's a big time get for Notre Dame, and he's going to be an animal. So just the fact they're on this, like I said, they're on this run right now. These guys they're securing, and it's really turning a lot of heads in the industry because for a couple different reasons. Number one, Notre Dame's getting these guys that they typically would have lost out on as maybe a Penn State or a USC or an Alabama or what have you, and they're getting those guys now. Or Georgia. A lot of these guys are Georgia recruits as well, and Notre Dame's getting them. And a big thing of this, we've talked about this in the past before, and I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I know you guys want to hear about the Bears. But when Marcus Freeman first took the job at Notre Dame, it was after Brian Kelly left to take the job at LSU. And one of the reasons that Kelly cited for leaving Notre Dame was the difficulties of recruiting because of the academic standards. Now, he didn't think he'd be able to get the kind of recruits you would need to win a national championship at Notre Dame, where he can do that at LSU. He can get those top talent kids. Well, look no further than what Marcus Freeman is doing at Notre Dame right now to dispel that notion, because he's just, like I said, he's picking up recruits left and right that are against the grain of what Notre Dame has done in the past in getting these guys as far as losing them to those other big-time programs. So I think it's important to see that, and it's important to note. I see Carl in the chat. I know you're a big Michigan fan. One of the guys they got a recruitment from, or a commitment from, I should say, in the last couple of days was a guy that Michigan was also chasing after. I believe it was Kari Adams, if I'm not mistaken, was a guy that Michigan was going after pretty hard. But like I said, they're on a nice little run right now. They're the number 2 class in the nation, according to 24/7 Sports. So you have any quick thoughts you wanted to mention about this stuff, Tim? Because I know, like I said, I know you're excited about it too.
Besides the fact that Brian Kelly sucks and Marcus Freeman is the man. I mean,
Marcus Freeman is the man.
I got so sick of the excuses from Brian Kelly. You are talking about the most prestigious college football program in history. You cannot tell me that team can't recruit. That's you being lazy. And here's the fact of the matter. Brian Kelly was not active on the recruiting trail. He sent his assistant coaches to do all of his recruiting, and Marcus Freeman is in these kids in their living rooms recruiting himself. And that is where the biggest problem lies. And here's the other part of that. Brian Kelly was an older guy. You know, his kids, I'm assuming, were all moved out at that point. Marcus Freeman has little kids at home. He has a son in high school, and he's got some younger kids as well. And he's still out there on the recruiting trail. Like, you can't make that excuse that, you know, you've got a family at home that you don't have time to go. And here's the other part of that. When you took on the job at Notre Dame, or any coaching job, whether it's the NFL or college football, you can kiss that stuff goodbye. Your time is gone. Like, you're going to spend your time with the football program. That's just what you have to. That's part of it. It's just like any other job. I mean, you've got to put your time and effort into it. But when it comes to things like this, when it comes to football, that's where all your time is going to go. I mean, sure, you're going to get to visit with your family at times, but I mean, look at Ben Johnson. How many times has he mentioned about how it's a grind, and he's a grinder, and his assistant coaches are expected to be grinders. That's part of it. I mean, when you're making millions of dollars to coach a game, that's part of it. So I don't know. We've talked about this before, and I don't want to get into a Notre Dame tangent here because this is a Bears podcast, but that was the thing with Brian Kelly. The big thing was I appreciate what he did for the program because he got them back to relevance, and they were a very competitive team every year. He only had 1 year, I believe, where he won less than 8 games. Every other season he was there, they won at least 8 or 9 games. They were a consistent bowl team every year. Typically, they were in like one of the main bowl games, one of the New Year's Six, or one of the, I can't remember what they call now, even though we're just now into the playoff era. It wasn't that long ago where they had the top 3 or 4 bowl games. But, typically Notre Dame was in one of those games with Brian Kelly even, but never could get over the hump, made the recruiting excuse. But funny how
I'll give Brian Kelly credit. He stabilized the program, and he made them a legitimate presence every year. I mean, they were winning 8, 9, 10 games every year underneath him. And they did go to 2 national championships, but they got the living piss kicked out of them both times under him. So, absolutely obliterated both times he made the national championship game with Notre Dame. So, I think they were back last year under Marcus Freeman, and they were very competitive in that game. Ohio State just was too talented, in my opinion. They couldn't overcome it. But I think they're on their way now. They're going to be a more relevant team in the future. You might see Notre Dame start competing for national championships again.
Hope so.
They haven't done that since '88. So I'll be happy to see it. You know what, Carl? I would love, as much as I hate Michigan, you know how awesome it would be to see Notre Dame and Michigan in the national championship? I agree. Yep. I agree, Aldo. Screw Michigan. But it would be cool to see Notre Dame kick their ass in the national championship game. So I will say that it would be cool to see them play against each other, because where we come from, Tim and I mean, there are so many fans of both of those teams in that area because we're so close to the state of Michigan as well, where I grew up. So there's just a lot of fans of both teams, and you would see just so much excitement in our hometown from something like that happening. I think it would be awesome. But anyways, let's move on, get into some Bears talk a little bit here. There's a couple of things I wanted to mention right off the bat. Let me see if I can get to my notes here. The first thing was that we weren't here last week, so we didn't get a chance to really comment on the press conferences that happened at the end of OTAs there. So I wanted to mention something that was interesting to me. We've talked a lot about how we're very optimistic about this coaching staff and Ben Johnson, and how things just feel a little bit different with him. And by the way, King, we appreciate the compliment towards assurance. Everybody loves Jimi Hendrix, right? I mean, he's the man. Timmy, I'm surprised he knows who Under Oath is, because they're kind of a
indie rock,
some screamo. But anyways, we appreciate that. But anyways, just to kind of dig into what I was talking about there, I thought it was interesting when Ruben Hippolyte was at this podium a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned of all the top 30 visits he took, which he did take several of them. I think he took like 14 or 15, if I'm not mistaken, is what he said. But he mentioned that of all the top 30 visits he took, that the only one, Ben Johnson was the only coach that had a vision and a plan for how he saw him fitting in with the team. So I thought that was telling right there in and of itself. A coach is meeting with you in a top 30 visit, and he has a vision that he's going to tell you right now, before you're even with the team. He's going to tell you what his vision is for you for when you're there. And so you would have optimism about wanting to go there, kind of thing. I think that's really, again, it's a breath of fresh air, because I can promise you, Matt Eberflus did not have a vision for how he saw things working out for everyone. So he might have thought he did, but he didn't. And he definitely could not, what's the word I'm looking for? Get it out. He wouldn't be able to, God, I can't think of the word now, but basically speak it. He wouldn't be able to speak his thoughts. So I just think that in any case there, it is, like I said, it's a breath of fresh air. Thank you, Aldo. He would not be able to express that to anyone. He wouldn't be able to form that thought, enough to actually speak it for everyone to hear. So, and understand. Carl wants to know if the T and HIT stood for the vision. I severely doubt. The fact that the was part of the T in the first place just shows you how dumb that Flus's ideals were in the first place. If that should have been a dead giveaway to all of us in the first place, that wasn't going to work out. But, we try to be optimistic, but it is what it is. And thank God he's gone now. But, I think it's, like I said, I thought that was pretty telling that he went out of his way to tell Hippolyte exactly how he saw him fitting in and what his vision for him was. So do you have a thought on it, Tim?
No, I think you hit it. I mean, it's just, we could go on with this all day about this coaching staff and the difference that we've seen in it and what we've seen from Ben Johnson. I mean, we've talked about it for weeks now. So to me, we're at the point now where we're going to have to wait and see. I think we're just at that point in time now that he's said all the right things. So far, he's done all the right things. So now, where does it go? Are we going to see this on tape or the opposite, which I doubt it's going to be the opposite, but it just, at this point, it's just wait and see. We can't, I don't think it's going to be healthy for us to continue speculating things at this point. It's just, like I said, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see how things are going right now or how things have been done versus how they were done with Flus. But, Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and ask you this. We didn't discuss this beforehand, whether we were going to talk about this, but I'm seeing a lot of stuff in here about Eberflus. And did you by chance check out that Aldo sent us a clip in this other group, in this group message that we're in. And it was, I don't remember what the podcast was, but it was two Colts linebackers. Zaire Franklin, and I don't remember who the other one was. But they were on this podcast and they were being asked about Flus and their time with Flus in Indianapolis. And I believe it was Zaire Franklin that had said, like, that dude never gave me a chance. He wasn't going to give me a chance. And it was interesting to me. I don't have the clip. Maybe Aldo's got it. We'll check here in a minute to see if he does. And then, or maybe a clip of the video. And you guys can hear some of the things he was saying. But what it made me think of was there were a couple of scenarios with players here. For instance, we talked about Brisker. We've talked about Dominique Robinson. Maybe those were guys that Flus felt the same way, similar to like he did with Zaire Franklin, and just said, like, these guys, I don't really like these guys. I'm not going to give them opportunities. Even if they prove it, I don't care. They're not my guys. Maybe they are, but I don't really care for them. So it's interesting. Jeff, I don't know if you saw that, but I mean, a couple things. One, does it surprise you? And two, what thoughts do you have based on the information that you got so far?
That doesn't exactly surprise me. I mean, Flus kind of comes off, honestly, as a little bit of a petty individual. I mean,
yeah.
Look no further when he first walked in the door and he had Jalen Johnson playing with like the third team defense because he's just being a prick for no reason. It's like, this guy is the best. I mean, if he's not the best player on your team, he's certainly one of the top 2 or 3 best players on your team.
Well, at that point, he probably was,
because he hasn't played with the third team because he's got some weird hidden agenda. But I think he was upset that he wasn't there for a voluntary practice or something, which is fucking stupid. But anyways, I mean, he was upset and he had him running with the second and third team and shit at the beginning when he first got. It was just dumb, to hear something like that. His past players coming out and saying that, it's not a huge surprise, but it's like, it really, I mean, you can kind of see it with some of the guys they had too with the Bears. It's like I feel like he didn't put his guys in the best position all the time anyway. So like you do kind of see where he might've had some favoritism for certain guys. There were people that were on the field a lot more than they probably should have been. And he obviously had tendencies that he couldn't get away from a lot of times, like playing too much soft zone. And as Aldo has on the screen here, was on the Trenches podcast. Thank you for that. Zaire Franklin had accused him of being of underhanded tactics, always sabotaging when the linebacker had made headway on the roster. Again, that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. I will say, I see what you're saying, Carl. I know that he obviously did work it out with them. He quickly identified that he was a top 25 player and he ego checked himself. You're right. I won't disagree with that. I won't deny that, Carl. You're right about that. But still, though, when he first walked in, that's a really bad precedent to set for the other players on the team. When you first walk in and it's like, they know he's one of their best teammates and the guy is playing with a third team defense. It's like, what kind of lesson do you think the head coach is trying to teach in that scenario?
Well, he was pretty much punishing him for not being there was what it came down to. But there were two parts of that. One, he was spending time with his daughter who lives in California. He did not live in California. So he's trying to spend as much time with her as he could. The other part of that was he has a foundation that he runs. And so it's always during that early stages of voluntary OTA stuff. And he had missed it that year. And of course, because he's missed it every year with doing stuff with his foundation, I think it's an event he hosts every year at the same time. And it was like Flus was trying to make a point out of it. And yes, he did succeed in as far as the part of ego checking Jalen Johnson. But here's the other part of that. Who is the person that was the most vehemently going after Eberflus last year? It wasn't close. It was Jalen Johnson. He's the one that had the tirade. And part of that, in my opinion, that the reason that is I don't think they ever got off on the right foot from the very beginning. Well, and I think that had a lot to do with it.
I mean, there's a point that Carl makes in here, and I do see where you're coming from, Carl. The idea was that Flus knew how much they would suck and for how long. You need to make sure he was mentally strong and to withstand that. There's levels to this. I see what you're saying, but personally, I don't know that. I mean, from what we've seen from Flus, I don't know that he had the mental capacity to even consider
smart enough to plan something like that.
Him to be mentally strong enough to withstand how bad
he couldn't even think smart enough ahead to call a timeout.
And not even just that, but like, I don't think Flus even thought they were going to suck as bad as they did for as long as they did. So that's another thing too. And just, yeah, I just don't see that. I don't think he would have had that mental fortitude to even consider that in the first place. I don't think he thought that far ahead. Hindsight is 20/20. You're right about that, but you know, it's hard to say. Me personally, I don't see that from him. I just don't. I didn't like it in my personal opinion. It wasn't something I could get on board with, doing that to one of your better players when, like I said, every one of his teammates knew how good he was. So I thought it was kind of a weird start to his tenure, but you know, he obviously didn't figure it out anyways, and we end up moving on. So there's no harm, no foul, I guess, at the end of the day. I mean, there kind of is, but there's not. So we got the guy we all wanted. So hopefully it turns out okay. Like I said, we're all optimistic right now. Everything that we've seen from Johnson has been pretty pretty refreshing, as we've said multiple times now. The one thing I'll say, as Aldo has on our initial graphic here, is that the kind of pressure that Caleb's got on him right now. Is it, there's a lot of people saying there's no excuses for him. The expectations, with the rest of the weapons around him, and they fortified the offensive line, the coaches, all this going on around the defense is strong. A lot of people saying he doesn't have any excuses and whatnot. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. We do kind of have to pump brakes a little bit with that. I mean, he's still a second-year player. He's going to have his ups and downs. I've said multiple times on the show in the past, offenses take a little while to get going. Typically, for most teams, it's not just the Bears. It's a lot of good teams have a tendency to have slow starting offenses. The Rams kind of were slow to get going last year offensively. So, and then when they finally did get going, they were really damn good. So it just happens sometimes. The defenses are ahead. If they kind of start off, I do expect them to see better play from them all across the board coming into next year. Yes. But there are going to be some bumps and bruises. It ain't going to be perfect right away. So I do hope people can give them a little bit of leeway with that kind of stuff. And it kind of brings me to a point that one of our loyal listeners, Brandon, asked me a question last week through a message on Twitter. And it was kind of a long-winded one. But basically what he was saying was he can see a world where the Bears improve dramatically, but don't necessarily win a bunch of games simply because of the difficulty of the schedule. And just a couple things on that. Yes, I could see a world where they improve greatly and they play a lot better, but they don't necessarily make the playoffs. You know what I mean? I think they should still be able to make a playoff push if they're that improved, though. Yes. That being said, I do think you can show massive improvement and still not, like I said, make the playoffs, but you can still win a lot of games. And so that's kind of where I almost disagree a little bit with what he was saying, Brandon was saying, with where you can see a scenario where they don't win very many games because of the difficulty of the schedule. Because number one, we don't exactly know the schedule difficulty will change within like the first 4 or 5 weeks. We'll know that is going to be totally different how good these teams are. And it'll incrementally change throughout the season. But by week 4 or 5, you'll know pretty much what teams are going to be relevant, who's not, I would imagine. For the most part, that's how it works out. So that being said, I do expect them to play better. I do think they'll win more games still, because there were so many games last year too, where they were like right there and they found a way to blow it. The Hail Mary game, there's several games where they had misusage of timeouts, things like that. Those are things where you're talking about a one-score game. One play could change everything there, and they win that game all of a sudden instead. So I think that's a big part of it too. That could flip the script a little bit for them. So I don't know, Tim, do you see that? What are your thoughts on this whole thing with Caleb? I know you've said before in the past that you do expect, matter of fact, I think your exact words were he has no excuses. So what are your thoughts on? Are you going to have some leeway for him if he's not perfect right away? Because I think we have to understand, like I said before, that it's going to take a little bit of time for this to really get going.
And yes, I have said in the past, he's not going to have any more excuses, but I think that context has kind of been taken out, because the way I meant it wasn't necessarily that I wasn't meaning it. We've made all these excuses for him and he has no more room for failure. What I meant by that was the Bears have done their part in taking away anything that could be used as an excuse, if that makes sense. So like, he's been given all of the tools, all of the help that he could possibly need. They've improved the offensive line. They improved the head coach. They improved the weapons. So when I say he has no excuses anymore, I just mean that they have eliminated most of what the excuses were from last year. I totally give him some leeway. I will say this. Stat-wise, I'm not as concerned. I don't really care about the stats part, but I do still believe he has to improve on the stat line from last year. I think,
well, yeah.
The main thing for me is we definitely need to win more games. I would like to see him be the reason we win a game or two this year. And really, don't cost us games. That's going to be my biggest thing. And to be fair and honest, I don't believe that Caleb cost us games last year. He wasn't the reason they were losing all of those games. Did he aid that process a little bit at times? Sure. But it wasn't because he was turning the ball over. He just wasn't getting enough done.
I mean, he took a lot of sacks though that were on him. A lot of
sacks, and those
again, though, I kind of agree with you though. I'm not sure that he really lost them any games on his own. It's not like making a big mistake kind of thing. There were a couple bad sacks he took in some critical moments.
Sure.
That hurt for sure, but I don't know that they necessarily lost him the game.
But to compare apples to apples, how many times did Justin Fields lose the games when he was the quarterback? Several. Well, there were several times where he would fumble in late game situations.
There were plenty of opportunities where he had a chance to win and couldn't find a way to win because of like big fumbles and stuff like that. I've told you guys before. The last year Fields was here, they were playing in Minnesota, and it was the end of the game. They had a chance to come back and win, and they were on a drive, and he fumbled the ball on a scramble. Minnesota got the ball back, and luckily the Bears found a way to get the ball back themselves and still won the football game.
Yeah.
But I remember him in the locker room, like apologizing to his teammates and stuff. And I told you guys, like I said before, I remember watching that game, and as soon as he fumbled that ball, I fell to my knees on the ground, and I said, Justin Fields is done in Chicago.
That was it.
Because that was that was it for him. That was the moment. It was done. If there wasn't a moment before, that was it. So I think that, yes, I tend to agree with you, Tim. And there's a couple of good comments in here, too, that I want to mention. King Bookerroll says that he likes how Caleb has the most pressure on him when Lamar Jackson, the golden boy who sucks sunshine down in Jacksonville, still exists. He's talking about Trevor Lawrence, obviously. I tend to agree with you for the most part. Lamar is actually he's actually won though, and he's won a lot of playoff games.
Don't care anymore. Now I agree with him, and this is why. How many more individual accolades is Lamar Jackson going to win before he wins a Super Bowl? Because at this point, he is just stacking up award after award and trophy after trophy, and he can't win playoff games. How many has he won in his career so far? Like 2 playoff games in total? I mean, we're talking about a guy who's won multiple MVPs. He gets talked about every single season, and the Ravens team is phenomenal. They have weapons. They have an incredible defense. They have a great offensive line. They have a good running game. And granted, he's a lot of that. But at what point are the excuses going to be done being made for him? Because I'm always hearing excuses for him. And I agree with you about Trevor Lawrence. I think the difference between the two is Lamar Jackson has a lot more games, and he's pretty much a perennial playoff quarterback, whereas Trevor Lawrence had the 1 year in the playoffs, and he's been pretty much atrocious ever since then. But I don't think Trevor Lawrence is any good. I think Lamar Jackson is good, and he's just blown his chances.
Basically what I was going to say is that I think, I don't know, he's blown his chances necessarily. I do think that he's obviously, they got to go out and win a Super Bowl with him for him to really kind of reach that.
Before you continue, let me rephrase what I said. I don't mean that he blew it.
Level player right now, though. He's won.
I don't think he blew it. I think he just he doesn't elevate himself in the biggest moments, and that's why they're not winning those games.
True. I don't know that's necessarily true. They've had some tough playoff losses, and part of it is like when he was younger in his career. Yeah, there were probably some moments where he could have made some mistakes that kind of sucked for them. But at the same time, I don't think he's not the reason they're losing football games either. So I just think that I do think it's only a matter of time before he eventually gets one too. They just got to figure out how to win around him. They've done it before. They've won Super Bowls with great defenses and great running games. Trent Dilfer was the quarterback for a Super Bowl win, for crying out loud. So if you can't win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, is not just a running quarterback anymore. That guy can throw the damn football. I don't know if you've been watching football lately, but he can throw the ball. So I think he's better. Trevor Lawrence, so I do agree with both of you guys on him. He is just, Trevor Lawrence has never shown me a damn thing in the league to lead me to believe that he's going to win anything or do anything. And I never thought he had earned that contract that he got this year because or last year, whatever it was. I can't remember now exactly, but he has not earned, I don't think he's ever earned $50 million in any case, not over the course of an entire contract, let alone 1 year.
Can I give you a comparison? Can I give you a comparison of a situation and a quarterback that Trevor Lawrence reminds me of? Not necessarily skill set, because I think as far as physical talent, the other guy is light years ahead of Trevor Lawrence, but Jay Cutler, somebody who the expectations were incredibly high. When it came down time for a contract, there were no options. It's either you pay him or you get nothing in return, and you have no quarterback.
See, I'm going to catch flack probably for even this, but in my opinion, when they both played and they're both at their best, I think Cutler's better than Lawrence ever has been at their best.
Yes, 100% he's better than Lawrence. But my point being is that the situations were very similar, where you have a pretty good team surrounding the quarterback, and they just cannot seem to get it done for whatever reason. And a lot of it usually comes back on the quarterback. Like, I think Jay was the better player. Jay's problem was more Jay than it was his talent on the football field.
Absolutely.
So
he always got in his own way.
Right. But what's Trevor's excuse at this point?
He doesn't, and like this what I just said, he doesn't really, and they're all thinking now that Liam Cohen is coming in there, that he's going to rejuvenate this offense and he's going to turn it around with Lawrence. He's going to have him playing like elite level offensive football. And I got to be honest with you guys, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't know that he's going to have success as a head coach. He's a pretty good offensive coordinator, but I don't see them being, and I know I'm kind of getting off track, but I just don't see them being that good. Jay Griss says Lawrence has had way more weapons and better O-line than Fields has in Jacksonville. And for the most part, that's been true. Brian Thomas had a pretty
Jacksonville actually has a great roster. They have a very good roster. They just can't seem to win.
And they never have been able to. Is the thing. And for whatever reason, they've never been able to really get over the hump. And Lawrence, and Carl, you made a really good point. He's the kind of guy that you don't win because of. Yes. You win in spite of, kind of thing. And it's like, sometimes that kind of is the kid. He's had some good games. Obviously, there's been some success in his career, but for the most part, you look at the overall body of work that Trevor Lawrence has had, it ain't very good. I don't know if that's a lot of you guys seem to agree with me on that, but that's just my opinion. So I don't know. Aldo says he uses good shampoo. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they like him for the fact he could be in endorsement deals. Or something.
You know who he's like? Trevor Lawrence is like Sunshine and Remember the Titans. That's what he is. He's just like Sunshine. And their situation is similar because Trevor Lawrence came in because who was the quarterback at Clemson before Trevor Lawrence stepped in? He got hurt and Lawrence stepped in and took off with the job. Same thing happened with Sunshine and Remember the Titans.
That is a great
Rev movie. Got injured and he took over.
Such a great movie.
It is a great movie.
He can't make that pitch, Coach. Sunshine just can't make that pitch. He can throw the ball a mile, but he can't pitch the ball for whatever damn reason. So, but yes, Aldo, such a great movie. Phenomenal. I'm gonna have to go watch that soon.
There were so many great quotes in that movie and lines that they live in eternity. And it's funny because I want to mention this real quick, even though it's not necessary, but that scene with Sunshine where he's telling him he can't make that pitch, Denzel Washington comes up, Coach Boone comes up to him and tells him, he says, my mother I grew up with, 8 or 9 brothers and sisters, and I had to basically raise my entire family. And he's like, you had 8 brothers and sisters? 4. When the assistant coach comes up to him, he's like, I had 4. Hilarious. Yeah, 8 sounds better.
Hey, King mentions that there's a quote in the movie that Julius Campbell says to Gary Bertier, their teammates, and it's right before they start to click and come together. Yeah. Attitude reflects leadership. That is one of the great movie quotes of all time, King. One of the great ones of all time. That scene, the way that first of all, the acting job between those two guys is just phenomenal. Yes, and phenomenal. The way that they work together and talk about the team and, Campbell's like, what team? And he's talking about how it's not, they don't play together and all these things. And Bertier's like, that's the worst attitude I've ever seen. And that's exactly what Campbell says is attitude reflects leadership, Captain. And he's talking right to says Captain of Bertier, obviously, when he says that. So, and that's, like I said, when things turn around, Bertier and the next practice has a moment where he tries to hype up Campbell after a nice play and they start to come together at that moment. So just a great line and a great part of that movie. I love that scene. So I'm glad you brought that up, King, because what a great quote from a movie. But can't believe that guy became Opie. He said, I'm a little surprised by that myself too. But
and how Opie goes out. I know how are we getting into Sons of Anarchy now? I don't know, but the way Opie went out was terrible. I hated that. The way that show was like it was a great series, but there were so many things that they did, like how they took characters out and how seasons ended and how the whole series ended. It's like, gosh, you could have done so much better for such a great show. This is stupid and terrible. Oh man, so many things ended poorly in that show. So many.
I don't know the character. I've never seen the show itself. I just happen to know who the character is.
Okay, so yeah, long story. It's Jax Teller, who is the main character of Sons of Anarchy. It's his best friend, and they're both in the same motorcycle gang. That's what you needed. Motorcycle club, I'm sorry.
Right.
So that's all that really matters. But Opie is a bad dude in that show. Bad dude.
I should start watching at some point. I have kind of seen some bits and pieces here and there, and I hear a lot of people that liked it.
As much as I would love to tell you to watch it, don't. You're just going to be disappointed in the end. So I would probably tell you not to.
You're like Game of Thrones in that respect.
I'm not. We'll get into that in a minute with Game of Thrones. I'm in the middle of Game of Thrones now. Okay. I've never watched it before, and I just started watching it. God, I'm in season 5 or 6. I can't remember.
But it'll piss you off.
Fantastic. To be honest, we're already jumping into pop culture, but to be honest, it might be the greatest television series I've ever watched in my life. It is so phenomenal. Such a great series.
From Game of Thrones?
Yes.
It's so good.
Phenomenal.
So good.
Yes.
It's just, like I said, though, it's that show that'll piss you the fuck off all the time. It just makes you so mad. But it's so damn good, though, and so captivating. You can't help it. Oh, man. I don't want to give any kind of spoilers for that, because if you guys haven't seen Game of Thrones, go watch it. But I promise you, shit is going to piss you off when you're watching that show.
After the third or fourth episode, you're pissed. It's like, what just happened? Why?
By the end of season 1, you're ready to go, I don't want to fucking watch this
Exactly.
shit.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
But yeah, it's so good. Until the dragons eat the entire cast, almost says. Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if that's exactly how it happens, but it's pretty. Some shit will happen that'll make you angry, like I said.
I've come to realize and understand that any character that you get attached to in that show that becomes somewhat of a main character is going to get killed off at some point. So
probably
just part of how it works so far.
Yeah. So anyways, guys, we didn't spend a bunch of time on Bear stuff like we normally like to do. We're kind of getting a little low on time, so I want to dig a little bit more into this pop culture.
We're in the dead zone, unfortunately.
We're in the dead zone period. Yeah, nobody's doing any content right now with the Bears. So real quick, if you guys have any questions, comments, suggestions for us that you want us to get to before the end of the show, please send them in the chat right now. If you guys are on Facebook watching the show, you got to register at StreamYard. StreamYard.com, I believe /Facebook is what you do, and you can register for free, and you can ask any questions through Facebook to us, and we'll get them. Jay Grizz, you actually missed it. We talked Notre Dame football at the start of the show and the kind of run they're on right now with the recruiting. It's crazy. They're kicking ass right now, and it's great to see. The Dragon Queen is also very attractive. I tend to agree with you on that. Cannot remember her name now. What is it?
Daenerys
Targaryen. Yes. Yeah. So. But yeah, she is good looking for sure. There's a couple things I do have mentioned from last couple of shows we had, some music stuff I want to mention real quick before you guys get into your questions and whatnot. So I tried to do some research on stuff for you guys like I always do when you give me suggestions for stuff. J2K had mentioned Sugar Man by Buena Vista Social Club. I could not find it for the life of me. I couldn't find it anywhere to try to listen to it. So you'll have to if you can find a copy for me, maybe send it like direct message to me on X or something, J2K, and I'll see if I can find it or listen to it or whatever. But like I said, I couldn't find it myself. King Book World, you mentioned a song called Ghost Rider by Rollins Band. I thought the vibe was kind of like a poor man's cross between Metallica and Alice in Chains. I don't know if you kind of get that feeling yourself. I listened to the Suicide version too, and though I liked them both, I felt they were kind of missing something. They had like a monotonous sound throughout them. They like they have potential. If somebody like did a remake again, added some different parts like harmonies in the background, guitar solos, more backing vocal variety, stuff like that. I think it could be really, really, really good. Like it has a ton of potential. I just think that it was missing a little bit of something. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is we were talking about Ghost Riders in the Sky a couple weeks ago. And Aldo has been listening to a version of that song by, I cannot remember the guy's name who plays the guitar part in that now for the life of me, but he's been listening to a version by of that song by a guy. If you haven't heard the Johnny Cash version, you absolutely have to listen to that because it's the best one. I love that version. And then there's another version by a group called The Outlaws, if you guys haven't heard, that's really good. And they also have another song. It's kind of a long one, but it's got a really, really awesome guitar part. It's called Green Grass and High Tides. If you guys haven't heard that song, check it out. Green Grass and High Tides by The Outlaws. If you like guitar playing and guitar parts, there's no way you won't enjoy that. It kind of has like a Leonard Skinner kind of vibe too, but not quite as southerny as them, I guess would be the word for it. I don't know if that's a great way to put it, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Skinner. Really good song. King Bookworld mentioned Spiderbait has a pretty good version of Ghost Riders in the Sky. I need to write that down. But yeah, so, and Cliff says Johnny Cash is even better than people think he was. And the guy was unbelievably good. I mean, he had such a great catalog. You don't even have to be a fan of that kind of music to enjoy Johnny Cash. Just a great voice. I love that style, that raspiness in his voice. It's always been, it's some weirdly comforting for me for whatever reason. Just his music is just the kind of stuff you can listen to just about any time. And it'll make you, it'll calm you down, put you in a good spot. Great stuff for me. And King mentions here, he wants to know what the most underrated grunge band that should have been bigger. He says minus Silverchair. Man, that's a good question. It's a really good question. There's a handful of them. A lot of people would probably say Mother Love Bone simply because Andy Wood died and they never really had a chance to get big, but they had a lot of good talent with them, obviously. So they probably should have been bigger than they were, but obviously they had, their lead man died. So that made it kind of hard on them. So I don't know, Tim, do you have a personal band here that you think didn't get enough credit as a grunge group that probably should have been better or should have gotten more, I guess, more radio play or more attention?
That's tough. And it's tough because at that time when grunge was popular, I think everybody kind of took a back seat to a few of them. Like, and let's face it, like Nirvana, they had a huge run and they're widely regarded as probably like the greatest grunge band of all time. It's because they were that was their creation. And you can only imagine what they would have been had Cobain survived and stayed alive if he was still living now, what would they have become? It's tough. I can answer this. Jay Grizz is asking if we consider Green Day to be grunge. I would not. I would consider them punk rock.
They're more punky than
grungy. Not like progressive punk like Blink-182, but like I would still consider them punk.
They're like
pop punk, not just punk. Pop punk.
I would just put them in a hard punk rock category. Is basically what Green Day would be.
I wouldn't even say hard. I would compare them to like a Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and a Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, they're harder than that. They're way harder than Fall Out
maybe
Boy.
Their older stuff, not their newer stuff. Yeah. I love old
my
Green
point
Day
is
much better than the
catalog, their overall catalog, they have shit that's way harder than anything.
Yes, I agree. They do. But so does Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. They're kind of like the same way. Like they had some poppy punk, like mainstream songs, and then they had some that were a little bit harder. So I don't know. I would say to me, Green Day is more similar to those bands that I just mentioned, like Red Jumpsuit, like Fall Out Boy, like Panic at the Disco, compared to bands like Blink-182 that pop, that kind of punk.
See, those bands you just mentioned, they give me more of that pop punk vibe that you just mentioned. More of that.
That's what I think of Green Day a little bit.
Those other bands
I'll give you a better example. Simple Plan, Sum 41, more similar to Green Day.
Yeah, Sum 41, yes, for sure. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that for sure. King Booker World says for him it'd be Silverchair is most underrated. I'm not super familiar with them. I have to do some research on them to find out more of their stuff. I do personally, and I know I mention these guys all the time, and I know they're already pretty popular as it is, but I really do think Alice in Chains is the most underrated of the grunge bands because their body of work is so good. That's what I don't get. They're so good and have such a large category of good music. And I know they're not everybody's style, so that's part of the reason why they wouldn't get.
I also wouldn't say they're underrated.
And how can you not be a fan of Alice in Chains?
And I think most people are. That's why underrated. I don't know about. They're probably the most
grunge bands.
In my opinion, they're probably the most successful grunge band. So how can you really say they're underrated?
I would say it's Nirvana and then Pearl Jam. And then
probably you can't really say Nirvana because Nirvana had a run of about 3 or 4 years.
But they're still the most successful. Every album, every one of them was multi-platinum, dude.
They did. Absolutely, they did. Yes, they did.
I think they're the most successful. And then you would say Pearl Jam probably after that. And then I would say Alice in Chains. And then probably like Soundgarden after that. So Soundgarden is underrated too. So
I think Audioslave is probably a little more popular than Soundgarden. Even
they're less grungy to me too. They're more of that traditional rock sound, in my opinion.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
And they have some of that, obviously, that rage.
They're more. I'll say this: they're more alternative rock, in my opinion, than they are grunge. Yeah.
Blind Melon is another good band. King Book World. I could see them. They're certainly underrated too.
I love 90s music, man. I love it.
Big hit they made. I can't think what the hell it's called now.
Rain. Something Rain.
Yeah. No Rain or God damn it. What?
Gosh, I can't think of the.
Shoot.
It's like it was a super popular song in the 90s. Super popular.
That's a really good song.
I think it's No Rain. I think it's No Rain. I could be wrong.
Yes, they're underrated. Green Day is underrated too, though, Jay Grizz. I know that we just said that we wouldn't necessarily consider them to be like grungy, but they're underrated. Cliff wants to know why so many great singers have that destructive trait that kills them young. I think it's kind of goes
the pressure.
They have to have that stage presence, Cliff. So they probably they feel like they got to perform the best they can at all times. They probably get a little too carried away with stuff. A lot of them have a tendency to get into heavily into drugs and stuff like that, and that just kind of like obviously they destroy lives a lot of times. And some of those guys, they can't function on stage the way they feel like they need to without doing that kind of stuff. And it does kind of ruin them. Andy Wood was the guy we mentioned earlier from Mother Love Bone, and those guys disbanded and formed Pearl Jam, but he died of a heroin overdose. I mean, a lot of these big time musicians who have died at young ages, they're from drug overdoses or alcohol overdoses. Jimi Hendrix died of an alcohol overdose. Who else was it? Janis Joplin died of a heroin overdose. Just so many of these. It's a lot of times it's drug or alcohol related because, like I said, I feel like part of it's the need to perform on stage, but not a lot of it too is like, could you imagine living those lives and what it would be like just trying to get away for a little bit, trying to get away from that life for a few minutes? You know, that probably was their way to do that. Some is to just kind of go into drugs and alcohol to find their way away a little bit. So I could see that. Aldo mentions Hole. Holes, I do like Hole. They're a pretty good band. I don't listen to them a ton, but I do like their stuff. They're a little underrated though, more or less. If I had to give an opinion on that part of it, but yeah,
I'm seeing quite a bit of Slipknot in here, and I'll just say Corey Taylor is one of the most. What's the word I'm looking for? He's an incredible artist. Like he's branched out. I don't know if you guys know this. Corey Taylor, the lead singer of Slipknot, was also the lead singer and frontman of Stone Sour. He's got his own band currently just called Corey Taylor. He's phenomenal. I love Corey Taylor. And yeah, Jeff, go listen to Stone Sour. Go listen like Through
I
Glass.
do know Stone Sour, but I didn't
Go
know he
listen
was.
to Through Glass and listen to the
I know
vocals.
that song, but I didn't know it was him.
Yes. So if you listen to his vocals in that, just imagine him like getting and then that, and you'll be able to compare the two, and you'll know it's him.
Yeah.
But like he's super successful, and I've been on here mentioning before that Joey Jordison, the drummer from Slipknot, who has since passed away, was one of the best drummers I've ever heard. He was incredible. Yeah, they're a very, very good band. I've always liked a lot of their music. I would not consider them grunge, though. They're metal. They're probably like a new metal, or some people are calling that like metalcore these days. To me, that's just like new metal. There's like the original metal, which would be like Metallica, and then you got that new metal, which is like, to me, that was started with bands like Slipknot and Disturbed. They kind of took metal and kind of molded it a little bit more like double bass drum and harder on your bass guitar, and that's where that new metal and a little bit of that screaming as well that you hear. So yeah, but like I said, I would not consider Slipknot grunge. That's definitely more of their metal for sure. I wouldn't be able to call it anything other than metal.
Right. Okay. Well, since we're kind of talking about this metally kind of stuff right now, I don't know if you guys are big into like screamo. There was a screamo period back when Tim and I were in high school where it was like really popular. Some of these bands. Now, I will say
real quick. I have to mention this before I forget it. Now I see it. Maddie comments and says Courtney Love ruined Cobain. I think Courtney Love killed Cobain. I don't think I don't think that's suicide. I think he was murdered by her, and she's gotten away with it for years now. Years. I know that's conspiracy and conspiracy theory here, but I think there's quite a bit of evidence that actually points to that. They need to do a documentary. I want to see it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really have a ton of thought on that. I don't know that she necessarily killed him, but she was definitely a problem for sure. I mean, it was. Aldo says lawyers for Courtney are on the phone for Tim. If they are, man, you got.
Do you know how many people believe that? I am not the only one. They'd have a lot of phone calls to make if that's the case. I'm definitely not the only person that believes that.
That's hilarious. I see some of you guys jumping in here from other chats and whatnot. We haven't really. We're kind of talking music now. We're at the end of the show. We did our Bears talk earlier, so if you guys like to get into some music stuff at all, we've been talking about bands that we like and things of that we're into. We like to mention songs that we like, and if you guys have suggestions to give us, we'd like to get into them. And by next week's show, we have a tendency to give breakdowns of what we think about those shows. So Bearski mentions Avenged Sevenfold. I loved Avenged Sevenfold when I was in high school. Backcountry album, there was a bunch of good songs on that we like to listen to. City of Evil was the album, actually. I'm sorry, that Backcountry was on. It was a really good one. And they had Unholy Confessions was probably my favorite song in high school. Growing up, Avenged Sevenfold, just great song. I loved listening to. I was a wrestler in high school, so was Tim. That was our hype stuff in the wrestling room. That's the stuff we used to listen to all the time, with stuff like that. And then when we were seniors, they came out with the Afterlife album. Can't remember what the album was called, but the song Afterlife was awesome. It was like their White album. I can't remember. That might have just been called the White album, but that was some good stuff too. But yeah, that's Tim. You're on mute right now.
I said, speaking of Afterlife, Five Finger Death Punch has a song called Afterlife that was on, I believe, not the last album, but the one before, and it's an incredible song. I love Five Finger Death Punch. If you guys don't listen to them, go listen to them. Ivan Moody's voice is just it's different, but it's so good. Their music is phenomenal, and he is such an original voice, totally different than anything you've ever heard before. I love their stuff. Love Ivan. I've seen them live in concert. Phenomenal. Best concert I've ever been to. By far.
And both these bands we're talking about, they have a little bit of screaming going, and not so much Avenged Sevenfold as Five Finger Death Punch.
There really isn't that much either. It's just
not as much anymore. But
right.
as far as and yes, Bearski, I am on Twitter. Our handles are at the top of the screen there. I'm at _ Jeff Willis. So I might be kind of hard to find, but I might be following you, Bearski, if I'm not mistaken. So I shouldn't be too hard to find. But in any case, I've mentioned screamo bands. You know, when we were in high school, I have a limit with this kind of stuff. Like when that's all they do, the whole song is that's all they're doing is screaming the whole time. I can't do it.
But greatest screamo band of all time.
I do like Under Oath a lot, and there is
not really that
in there, but
so they're different. I love, and I'll explain them in a minute. Go ahead with your point, and I'll explain what I was just going to say.
I was just going to say one of my favorites, and Tim, I know you're not a big fan of theirs, but I've been listening to them since I was in high school, and I still listen to them when I go work out at the gym nowadays. Is a group called, and they're not
August
together
anymore.
Burns Red. No, not August Burns Red. I don't really listen to them anymore, and I only liked a couple of their songs, but Kill Switch Engage.
They're still together. They're still together.
I thought they broke up because the lead singer was with a different group for a while.
They just got a new album. I think they got back together. Pretty sure they just got, unless I'm thinking of a different band, they just got back together. They have a new album out.
Well, in any case, they're awesome. They had a bunch of good songs I liked. They one of their first albums was The End of Heartache. That was a great song on that album. Breathe Life was on that album. Great song. Take This Oath was on that album. Great song. My Curse was on a different album. That was on
I can't remember.
As Daylight Dies, if I'm not mistaken. But that was a great song, My Curse. So yeah, I love Kill Switch Engage. They have a lot of good music, a lot of good songs, and I used to listen to them a ton when I was in high school. Yeah, King Book World, My Curse. Great song. One of my favorites of theirs for sure. But I really like Take This Oath a lot too. I think that's a really underrated song of theirs.
I will say that you used to talk about all the time, but the drum intro of Take This Oath is freaking awesome.
Awesome. It's so awesome, dude. And that drummer in and of itself, that guy is just really, really good. And if you ever watch some of their music videos, watching him play, you can just tell he's so savvy. Very, very, very good drummer. And Cliff says, the older I get, the more he likes beautiful voices and interesting instrument play. Boom, boom, boom doesn't do it for me anymore. You know, I have a tendency to be the same way, Cliff. I mean, I do like hip hop and rap for sure. I'm a huge Tupac fan. Matter of fact, I have All Eyes on Me record on vinyl right now. There's 4 vinyl records to it because, you know, obviously back in the day when records first came out, you didn't have 18 songs on a CD like you can fit nowadays. So when that album came out, there were so many songs on it that they had to literally fit it onto 4 different albums. So I thought that was cool, and I do have it. I love that album, and I do like a lot of rap music, but I tend to agree with you, Cliff. I like when people make their own music, and they write their own stuff, they play their own parts. It shows it's a certain ability that's – and it just can kind of take you somewhere sometimes, you know? So just like listening to – and Bearsky, I will listen to Dream Theater, Honor Thy Father, because
I'm not sure, Bearsky, is that with Mike Portnoy as the drummer, or is that when they went after him? But Mike Portnoy, by the way, one of the greatest drummers ever. He's phenomenal drummer. And Dream Theater was known for their amazing drum parts, and that was him. He's the man.
He says, yes, it was Portnoy. So, and that doesn't surprise me. Portnoy is the shit. Tim and I, if you guys don't know, I mean, Bearsky, you might not know, but Tim and I dabble in drums a little bit. Tim actually has some training because when we were in school, we played in band, and Tim actually learned how to play percussion in band. I bought a drum set down the road when I got older, and I just play on it in my free time and stuff. So I'm not the best drummer in the world, but I'm okay. And so I do have an appreciation for guys who are really good drummers and good drum parts. Jamiroquai, Jay Grizz mentions, what's that song they had? Can't Heat, man. That was in Napoleon Dynamite. What a great song, man. That's some groovy shit there. I like that.
I do like Gorillaz, yes.
Gorillaz are good. Feel Good Inc. was a really good song.
Yep.
I do like some of their stuff. They're kind of like a hybrid of like rock rap, and I do like Linkin Park was kind of like that. I like a lot of Linkin Park stuff.
Yes and no.
They're I know they're only suit certain people's tastes, but yeah, Bearsky, I totally agree with you. You say you're a bassist and you love Jamiroquai's bass lines. Their bass lines are really, really groovy and funky, and to me, that's kind of like the bread and butter of any good rhythmic background for a rock song or a jazz song or a funk song or whatever the case may be, is a good bass line getting funky behind a nice drum sound. Okay, so you guys have heard me talk about this before. I took jazz band when I was in school, and one of the main components of jazz play, especially when you start getting into like soloing and stuff, It all starts from a base of drum part and a bass part, and there's a groove and a rhythm that plays before anything else goes on top of it. And then once you get that established, then people start playing solos over the key that you're in, right? So like, let's say you're in G, a guitar player can play any note that fits in that scale on a G scale that they want throughout the time that they're improvising, and it'll sound right. And they can play anything they want, all kinds of shit. Jimi Hendrix is a great improver. That's why I love him so much. I think he's one of the greatest guitar player of all time because he was such a great live player, live musician. The way he played live was just incredible, which reminds me of a song, if you guys have not heard it. There's a live album with Jimi Hendrix called Band of Gypsies, and there's a song on it called Machine Gun. Absolutely incredible guitar solo. It's like a 13-minute song, 14-minute song, but it is so good. And it actually sounds like they're at war. It sounds like machine guns going off. It sounds like at the end, it sounds like bombs and shit and planes flying. It's cool as hell. And King, I cannot believe you just mentioned it as I said it, because it is such a great song, an unbelievable song. So yes, check out Machine Gun, guys, if you don't know it yet, because it is a great guitar solo. And there's the drum part's really good in that too. So if you like that kind of stuff, definitely get into it. But what do you think, Tim? Do you listen to Hendrix? I know you're not the biggest Hendrix fan, but do you listen to that kind of stuff? Have you heard that song?
I have. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that Hendrix wasn't a phenomenal guitarist. He is. My argument with you is always that you believe he's the greatest of all time, and I don't believe he's the greatest of all time. I think I don't think you can make an argument that he's not in the top 10 or top 15 of all time, no question.
Top one.
But I don't think he's number one. No.
I just think that with Hendrix, the reason I say is because number one, he was such an innovator. He was doing stuff.
Agreed, but that does not make you the greatest just because you're a great innovator.
That's not it, though, Tim. That's not it, though. He also could play anything he wanted to, anytime he wanted to. And yes, Bearsky, it always depends on your qualifier. So I totally agree with you on that. But he just did things his own way. He could play anything he wanted, anytime he wanted. He had a great, in my opinion, anyways, he had a great catalog of music. Little Wing is a fucking masterpiece, Bearsky. Absolutely, totally agree with you. That guitar part is unreal in that song. Hey Joe has another really good guitar part in it. His stuff in there's like 4 guitar solos in All Along the Watchtower. It's just great shit. I see you like rolling your eyes there, Tim, because I know you're not the biggest fan, but Jimi Hendrix.
No, dude, I'm just waiting to get my point across.
Say your point. Say your point.
I'm being asked the question. Am I allowed to answer the question I'm being asked?
Yeah.
Cliff would like to know who is my greatest guitarist, and it's not my greatest guitarist. He's the greatest guitarist, and it's Prince. It's not close. Prince is the greatest guitarist of all time. Look no further, and we have talked about this on this show multiple times. His solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, when they did the George Harrison tribute, total improv, by the way. Yeah, total improv. Phenomenal. And you just mentioned that Hendrix could play all these different styles. I have never in my lifetime seen a guitarist that could play the bass line, the rhythm line, and lead solo at the same exact time on the same exact guitar like Prince did.
It was Hendrix using his
unreal. Unreal. Yes, that's exactly what Prince did with this here. Unbelievable. Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
I'm just saying Hendrix was doing it first. I won't take nothing away from Prince. Prince is the shit, man. I mean, he's damn good. And he did that guitar solo from that song you were talking about, man, was just like, dude, he that was something that's not like him to do. I'm just not the biggest Prince fan in general. I think he's a great guitar player. And
I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of his music because I'm not a big pop music fan, but you got to give credit where credit is due. He was absolutely phenomenal guitar player. Number 1 ever.
I think it's Hendrix, but that's just my personal opinion. I mean, who are some of you guys, some of you guys' favorite guitarists? Because I know you've heard me mention in the past, some of my favorites are like, I think Hendrix is best. Jimmy Page is right there. Eddie Van Halen is right there. David Gilmour is
has
up
to be
there
in there.
For sure. Keith Richards for sure.
We know your feelings on Keith Richards.
Yeah, he's up there for sure. I got a lot that I like a lot of guitar players that I'm a huge fan of.
Clapton, yes.
Clapton definitely is up there for sure. Absolutely.
Ted Nugent up there for sure.
Yeah, Nugent's up there. He's one of the better ones.
There was a lot of them from that time for sure. And you know who the one that we may not even be having this conversation if he would have lived past the age of 24 is, now I'm blanking on his name, Ozzy's guitar player.
Randy Rhoads.
Randy Rhoads, yeah.
Randy Rhoads
died at the age of 24, and he was phenomenal.
By the way, Tim, did you know that Randy Rhoads was the guitarist and he was like the band founder of Quiet Riot?
Yes.
I didn't know that until recently.
You didn't know that? Yes.
That was Randy Rhoads, and now it makes so much sense because that guitar is so Randy Rhoads when you hear it. It really is.
Persky, yes. Dimebag Darrell was the frickin' man. And you know what? Vinnie Paul was one of the greatest drummers, too. Phenomenal brothers, for sure.
He wants to know if you heard of Humphreys McGee. I have not heard him, but I'm going to have to write that down, too. I tend to do that every week.
Have you guys heard of a guy named Yngwie Malmsteen? Unbelievable guitar player. Doesn't really have any like big time bands. He's kind of just bounced around all kinds of places, but that guy's phenomenal. And I used to think that he was the greatest ever. For a long time I did. And that my mind changed over the years. But yes.
King mentions a guy named Glenn Goins, who was a part of Parliament Funkadelic. He died at 24. He'd been one of the best. I'm assuming you're talking about Parliament, the label. So he probably was a studio guitarist, if I had to guess, right? So that sounds about right. There's a lot of great studio guitarists that either started that way and got bigger, or they were just always studio guys. There's one guy I can think of. Actually, matter of fact, Jimmy Page started as a studio guitarist before he ended up with Led Zeppelin and started them up. But anyways, like I said, a lot of good studio guitarists who got big over time with that. Any other guitar? I'm trying to think of some good, like off-topic guitar players that really don't get a ton of love that we should mention at some point. I know we're out of time here, so maybe we'll bring it up for next time. But that's what I'm going to do for next time is try to think of some underrated guitar players that maybe don't get a lot of love that deserve some. Like
I will throw one out right now just for you guys to think about for a while. That's Lindsey Buckingham.
I just said Lindsey Buckingham.
He's
a great bass player, King, for sure. Absolutely one of the best.
Dude, Flea might be the greatest bass player of all time. Phenomenal. And yes, Frusciante is excellent guitar player. Probably top, you'd have to put him in the top 100 conversation for sure. He's phenomenal. Yes. A lot of good ones.
Victor Wootenberski, who's he play for? I have to check that out. I'm not familiar with the name, but he's talking about bass players. So
to me, that conversation, you got to include Flea. You have to include Tim Comerford. You have to include John Paul Jones. You have to include Geddy Lee. Like those are
Geddy Lee, absolutely. Yeah.
Like big.
I would even put John McVie in a conversation there too. Personally, I think John McVie's the shit. So I mean,
to me, I know they're not like older style, but to me, they kind of separate, and it's Flea and Tim Comerford from everybody else. Those two were ridiculous, unreal. Okay, yeah, that guy's pretty good too. The guy from Korn is pretty good.
Korn is good. So yeah, you guys got a lot of. I love talking about this stuff with you guys. So
me too.
That's what I want you guys to think about for next week. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to think about some of my favorite guitarists that we haven't really talked about much. I want you guys to think about your favorite bass players, drummers, guitarists, whatever you can think of, favorite bands, and then email us at willistwintowerspodcast@willistwintowerspodcast@gmail.com. And we'll try to get it next week, or just join us live and ask next week as well. And there's a question from Carl here. He wants to know where Chester Bennington ranks among all-time singers.
That's tough.
Man, he's got a great voice.
I will say this. Without Chester Bennington, Linkin Park would have been nothing. Would have been nothing.
Hell no. So, I mean, he's up there. I would certainly top 50.
Yeah.
And I think that's being –
it's
probably
modest.
Higher than that, but I just am being generous, or not generous. I'm being modest. Yes, he's easily top 50, but it's hard to say because there's so many great ones. But I do think he's very, very good. Chester, and it's like I said, so sad that he's gone now. Just like Chris Cornell, they were such good friends. And Bennington actually, I believe he mentioned. I think there was a memoir or something after he died that part of the reason why he committed suicide was because of Cornell being gone.
Commit suicide. My conspiracy theory is coming back.
Oh boy, here we go with Tim again.
They were murdered, both of them.
I'm sure you think that.
Yeah, I know so.
I don't really know. I'm not going to get into it. All I know is it's sad that they're
will.
gone. Chris Cornell is, in my opinion, if he's not the greatest singer of all time, he's probably number 2. So, and look, Carl, I love Linkin Park too. So I hear you on that. When we listened to a ton of Linkin Park when I was in high school in the wrestling room, it was big for us. So we listened to so much good stuff in the wrestling room. But yeah, Carlos Santana too, Jay Grizz. He was the shit. Stevie Ray Vaughan, the shit. I tell you guys what, I watched this.
Can I tell a story before you do that, please? My son is getting guitar lessons, and he has been for about 2 or 3 years now. And his guitar teacher played with Stevie Ray Vaughan, which is
shit.
Yes,
Stevie Ray,
a very, very good guitar teacher.
I watched this video of Stevie Ray Vaughan playing a concert live in front of a bunch of people, just playing a song, just playing this improv solo like he does, doing it, typical Stevie Ray kind of sound, and a guitar string breaks right in the middle of it. And he just keeps going like nothing happened, just keeps playing his, and it wasn't like an important string you got to play because it's one of the higher ones. So he's in the middle of his guitar solo, missing his D string or whatever it is, and he's not able to play it. And then all of a sudden, like in the middle of the solo, he just kind of like nonchalantly hands a guitar to somebody. They like put this guitar over me. He starts playing this new guitar with all the strings intact. It was just, it's crazy. The guy was so good, so damn good. He said, and Cliff wants to know, what's a Stone song where Richards plays the solo intro? So simple yet so epic. Then the band kicks in. I think it's Can't You Hear Me Knocking. I think it's Can't You Hear Me Knocking is what you're talking about. I love that song. I think is what you're talking about. That is such a great intro. And then the drum part, right? Man, and the drum and the bass line.
Wouldn't it be Painted Black?
Maybe.
That's probably what he's talking about.
There's so many good ones. It's hard to say, but that's the one I can think of where he's the only one playing at the beginning is Can't You Hear Me Knocking? And then they all jump in right after that part. But.
Can I answer this before we go? I know we got to get out of here, but Carl's question, I'm not going to do the homework because I'll tell you right now, they suck without Chester Bennington. I've never even listened to their music since then. Don't need to. They're going to suck without him.
Well, yeah, Carl, I see your homework for us for next week should be listening to their stuff. I will listen to it. It's going to be, like I said, it'll be sad without Chester. I'm interested. Does the guy still sound like him a little bit? Or was that their goal? Or
it's a girl. It's a girl.
Oh, really? So it is different then. So it's like AC/DC when they went from Bon Scott to Brian Johnson, just a totally different sound. So, yes. Okay. Well, I'm good with that. I'll check it out for sure. Bearsky says I've got like 20 messages from him on Twitter now, and it's my fault. That's fine. I love talking music, man. So anytime you want to do that,
absolutely.
I'm good with it. So next week, that's for sure. We'll have some homework for ourselves and for you guys. Send us some, like I said, send us an email, any song suggestions, band suggestions, musician suggestions, questions for us, whatever the case may be. Willis Twin Towers Podcast at gmail.com. We'll get to them next week best we can. And also just join us live here on the show on Friday night. And we'll get to it at the end of the show like we have been. So what a great show tonight. We appreciate you guys being here as always. Just a quick reminder, as always, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find us all on extra Twitter. I'm at _Jeff Willis. Tim is at Tim Willis 24. And you can find our awesome executive producer at Barroom Network. That is Aldo Gandia, and he is the podfather and the man. So until next week, guys, we appreciate you being here. As always, bear down.
Da Bears.
New and mightier foes will arise, new adventures will begin, and Goku and his fellow warriors will be ready. Until then, we bid you farewell.
The Willis Twin Towers Podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the Fair Use Doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.